They have like a regional championship flag for me and like a
All
Grand
right,
Prix
here we
final.
go. Round 14 of Pro Tour return to Ravnica. We got Rashad Miller and Zach Hill in the booth, and we are watching
This is what we showed
Gabriel
up with
Nassif
today.
go up against Ari Lax. Tell us a little bit about what's going to happen while we see a Glistener Elf hit the battlefield.
All right, so Ari's deck is a blue, black, green infect deck. He's just trying to play a quick threat and cast a bunch of giant growths on it, a bunch of pump spells, and kill the opponent as quickly as possible. Nassif also trying to dump his hand on the first turn, which we see him do with Mox Opal into Springleaf Drum, into Steel Overseer. So great draws from both these decks, but Nassif wants to pile artifacts on the table. Ari wants to pile on poison counters.
That's right. And we see that both players are at 20 life. One of those 20s don't matter because Glistener Elf has Infect, is going to be dealing its damage as poison counters. As it attacks, gets pumped by, it doesn't get pumped by the Pendelhaven.
Right, Pendelhaven being used to cast Blighted Agent. So we see a mutagenic growth in Ari's hand. Not any more pump spells, but Nassif not playing the red version of robots with burn spells, so doesn't really have a main deck way to stop that Blighted Agent if Ari's able to draw more pump effects. On the other hand, Steel Overseer, Ornithopter, Inkmoth Nexus on the table, plus a pair of Thoughtcast. Really good draw from Nassif, so I think this matchup really is going to be about Blighted Agent and whether Nassif can end the game before it kills him.
And we have a Thoughtcast from Nassif, draws him 2 cards. It costs 4 and a blue, but it has affinity for artifacts. So for each artifact, that's 1 less colorless mana you need to play. So basically, it's blue, draw 2.
Now, we've seen a lot of red robots decks before. Really, this is one of the first premier blue robots decks we've seen in the spotlight. 4 Steel Overseer, kind of a key innovation, in addition to 4 Arcbound Ravagers. Thoughtcast, paying a blue to draw 2 cards. Hard to appreciate how powerful that is sometimes, but evidently that's what Nassif decided to prioritize for this event.
Right, and you notice the little green 1P underneath Gabriel Nassif's life total. That's 1 poison counter. You get 10 poison counters, you lose the game. And luckily, all of Ari Lax's creatures deal their damage in poison counters. So it's a little unfair. Ari starts at 20, Nassif starts at 10. Let's play some Magic.
All right, now Nassif, 3 mana available to him. Still hasn't played his second land. He's sitting there thinking about it. He got a slow play warning in the last match. So if I was him, I'd be feeling a little bit of the pressure. I'm going to expect to see a Cranial Plating played and equipped to that Ornithopter, which can go ahead and attack already. It's hard to underestimate how much mana and how many threats the Affinity or the Robots deck can deploy.
All right, so it looks like Nassif wants to play a land. He's posturing his Ornithopter over next to the Springleaf Drum. Maybe those guys are assigned to each other. They're buddies for life.
5 minutes when, that's becoming ridiculous. Like, literally every game, like, it's like so absurd.
Well, Gabriel Nassif is upset about something.
I think he's trying to make a decision right here and he's feeling the pressure of the slow play. It's tricky because, some games do end very fast. On the other hand, you do have to move along the pace of the game, and the rules don't care how challenging your deck is to play.
Thank you.
There's definitely a lot of pressure here. And granted, these games aren't going to last very long.
Right, exactly. These games are only going to last a few turns. These decks are dealing damage in huge swaths. Cranial Plating this turn can hit for as much as 5. So
maybe we should find a way to evenly divide the time that it takes for the games to play versus how much time you have it around. And then, you kind of just section it off and you can get yourself a little pace going, maybe set up a metronome, clicks once every, depending on how fast the matchup is. But we do have a land in play, played by Gabriel Nassif. Looks like he played an Inkmoth Nexus.
I think the Inkmoth Nexus was there. I think the Blinkmoth Nexus
is the new one.
There's so many Nexuses.
There's so many Nexuses, and they all are Inky or Blinky or or Doc. I don't know who else. Doc Nexus.
Okay.
All right, so we're not seeing the Cranial Plating hit this turn.
Instead, we see a Vault Scourge.
Right, exactly. Nassif shuffling around his cards. Steel Overseer is still up to increase the size of the team if necessary. Ornithopter there can turn on the Springleaf Drum. But, we are going to need to advance the board state, though. It's a really tough call because these decisions are make or break like we saw earlier. A single decision can change the pace of the game. On the other hand, you know, all the players are playing by the same rules.
All right, so it looks like the Vault Scourge is going to be used with the Springleaf Drum, along with the mana from the Inkmoth Nexus, and there is the Cranial Plating. And a pass of the turn.
All right, Nassif just saying go. Maybe wanted to keep the Ornithopter plus the Steel Overseer back to deter the attack from the Glistener Elf. Clearly respecting the pump spells out of Ari's deck. You know, there's so many ways that deck can give creatures +4/+4. And Ari said frequently ends the game by the third turn.
All right, so attack with Glistener Elf and the Blighted Agent. And Blighted Agent, unblockable, hexproof. Am I correct?
I don't believe it has hexproof. I do believe
it is
unblockable.
unblockable, but does not have hexproof.
But no targeted effects, I think, for in Nassif's main deck. 3 dismembers in the sideboard, though, that could become increasingly relevant. Right now, I mean, it's really just kind of a race that Pendelhaven's about to start doing some work.
Exactly. It looks like Ari's doing a little bit of math, trying to see maybe he can do 9 poison right now.
And that's the thing, you never know from his deck. It can pull wins right out of nowhere. We see the Ornithopter very quickly blocking the Glistener Elf.
The problem, the bane of Ari Lax's existence, apparently. 0-2, no 0-2 flying, just can't beat it.
Just can't beat it. When he said that, he's like, oh, you know, robots is a big problem for me. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, they have their own nexuses. Like, what is the deal? He's like, no, Ornithopter is actually just almost
just
unbeatable.
Oh, this guy's in play. Second main.
All right, so this could get confusing. +1/+1 counters versus -1/-1 counters, except they just kind of disappear.
Not for long.
Thanks, Ari, for answering my question. He's listening to us.
So, yeah, Nassif not using Steel Overseer on the block, which could have threatened the Glistener Elf. Just kind of an awkward interaction. He's up to 3 poison counters. You see Ari using Pendelhaven on the unblocked Blighted Agent, clearly just trying to end the game as quickly as possible. Didn't really care very much about that Glistener Elf.
That's right. That Gabriel Nassif at 18 life, but 3 poison counters, which is the most important. Ari Lax, 18. And it doesn't look like Nassif has decided to mount an offense yet, although he does have that Cranial Plate sitting in the wait.
No, yeah, we're going to see an attack this turn for sure. I think Nassif trying to decide how he wants to cast that Thoughtseize. And Cranial Plating, you know, normally being equipped to Vault Scourge can make it pretty hard to race, but again, Ari doesn't really carry very much about damage right now.
Now, we heard back at one of the back tables, Maxim Grin takes game 1 over Ivan Flock. That's a pretty good matchup. We actually do have the deck list, but we are going to give you this action in this game. We're going to give these guys all the due that they deserve. Everything they deserve.
Right. Now we're seeing Nassif sit and count up his artifacts. Each one of those nexuses of varying varieties can turn itself into an artifact for an additional point of damage. We see Thoughtcast happen, draw into another Thoughtcast plus to Signal Pest. I haven't done the math, but I think Nassif could present lethal in 2 attacks with between the Plating, the Steel Overseer, and the Signal Pest.
All right, and there is a second Inkmoth Nexus for Gabriel Nassif. It looks like he wants to play that Signal Pest. He's thinking about it.
Now, another thing we need to remember is the Cranial Plating could equip an Inkmoth Nexus, and if he has 10 artifacts, that's just game over right away.
Even I can play the poison game since Gabriel Nassif.
Yeah, are we seeing like an Infect mirror match?
Maybe we should just get rid of these life totals. Who needs those?
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 artifacts right now, potentially 8 with the Blinkmoth Nexus.
And still Overseer can still tap.
Yep, that is very true. So yeah, very, very close for Nassif.
I think he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Equip.
Yep, picks up Robot Hat.
Sorry?
Picks up the Robot Hat.
Robot Hat. That's a new name for
I
it.
kind of like it. Now, Springleaf Drum can either activate Blinkmoth Nexus or cast Signal Pest. I don't think he has lethal right now, though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 artifacts plus the Steel Overseer, plus potentially another threat or an activation.
Right.
Pump everyone.
Now, I believe only one of the Nexuses are active. Just the one that attacks.
Cancels out of it.
That is true. The other Nexus not active now. It's possible Ari didn't even need to block there. If the attack wasn't going to be lethal, and we don't see the top of the screen, so it's possible that it was. But going down to 1 poison may not even matter that much if he could have attacked for exactly lethal next turn. So possible that he shouldn't have even blocked there and just said, all right, I'm going to live dangerously with 9 poison counters.
Yeah. And there was a Still Overseer activation there, which put a counter on the Ink Moth Nexus, but the Infect put a -1/-1 counter on that same Ink Moth Nexus. So both of those counters cancel each other out as a state-based effect. I think they're called something different now. State-based something.
They go away.
They go away. The game says they shouldn't be here.
All right, so we're talking more about slow play. Ari drew a Giant Growth, so he's got Pendelhaven.
Yeah.
Giant Growth.
So it's a 2/3.
Mutagenic Growth. And yeah, this is going to be enough.
4/5.
So 4/5.
7.
It's a 7. It's a 7/8.
Growth.
It's actually
Actual Giant Growth.
All right.
And you're at 3 infect already.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 poison plus 7, that would make 10.
I'm going to...
All right.
And Blighted Age is unblockable, so
right,
that's not an option.
Straight out of 1993, a top-decked Giant Growth. This is not a euphemism. This is not a Giant Growth effect. This is a literal Giant Growth being top-decked for Ari Lax to put him ahead 1-0 against Gabriel Nassif.
So what is the earliest picture of Giant Growth you think Ari Lax has played with?
I was talking with him earlier today about the Dragonfly from Ice Age, and he got the reference, so he's at least back that far.
Well, that's good. So that was unexpected.
These 2 decks just operating on totally different axes. Kind of crazy. I mean, Ari didn't have a lot of pump spells in his opening hand. He had the Mutagenic Growth, but all of a sudden the Giant Growth, and that's exactly 7 points of poison.
So, and you know what? Gabriel Nassif had a turn 1 Ornithopter, and it just wasn't enough. You know, not that that's obviously the end all for this matchup, but let's look at this matchup a little bit more. So you're Gabriel Nassif. You just lost a close match where
the previous turn
you were
I had the +2.
Infect away, 1
and I was
poison
thinking
counter
if
away
I
from
leave
winning.
up the Pendelhaven,
How do you switch around your
like,
deck?
play around a blast or something. It's just like
Ari
I'm
was
just dead if you
definitely
have it.
saying that
You obviously didn't have it, or you would have.
The gameplay earlier, but Ari was saying actually he was terrified game 1 of his robots
Specifically the way I
matchup.
played.
But he's got tons of cards in the sideboard. 4 copies of Nature's Claim he says he always brings in. It's nice because he just doesn't care about the life at all. Dismember he says he sometimes brings in, depending on how much they're leaning on Etch Champion.
Right.
If that's a priority of theirs,
I just find it kind
a
of funny
little
that
bit
I'm playing
worse.
with that card.
Obviously, sometimes he brings it in
Eternal
though.
Format Pro Tour.
And Thought Seize he says he basically brings in against almost everything. So I expect to see Nature's Claim and Thought Seize out of Ari's deck.
The Magic Feather Case by Incipio lets your imagination flow. Keep your iPhone protected from danger while showcasing Magic's awesome imagery, including the most popular planeswalkers and other amazing art. For more information, visit wizards.com/magic merchandise.
I was looking at Ari's sideboarding there. I think he may have left his Thought Seizes in his board, so it's possible he didn't bring those in. He also might just be doing the, I'm going to shuffle my deck and sideboard together and bring out 15 cards.
Okay, so, and we actually saw Ink Moth Nexus almost get the game for Gabriel Nassif if it weren't for an Ink Moth Nexus over on Ari Lax's side, to jumping away, you know, heroically, as if they were secret agent, like Secret Service agents jumping away at the president.
Clearly. There are no differences between Ink Moth Nexus and a Secret Service agent.
None whatsoever. So let's take a look at Ink Moth Nexus.
It was also the deck I was going to play, so I didn't make this.
And there it is. It's kin to the Blink Moth Nexus. It actually becomes a Blink Moth when it's activated. So there's some interesting interactions there with the actual Blink Moth Nexus. And there's synergy with Swords and Keswick Wolfrun.
Right.
Standard was actually pretty awesome when you had that interaction. And I should have not told you about what creature type it changes it to.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I could have tested you again.
That's a clever interaction. Yeah, if ape and blink moth. That's right, 2 for 2. But yeah, when we were designing this card, we expected it to be one of the most popular cards in Mirrored and Besiege. Huge applications. I mean, in dedicated Infect decks, it's incredible because it dodges a lot of removal that players have to play on their own turn. Even in non-Infect decks, we've seen it in robots. We've seen it in obviously the Primeval Titan, Kessig Wolfrun decks. It serves as a really powerful backup plan, and you know, if you have any way to pump its power, and in concert with Exalted or things like Rankers, sometimes it can just go the distance by itself.
All right. So now we talked a little bit about how Ari Lax is going to sideboard.
Right.
What's Gabriel Nassif doing?
All right, so I think he's got to bring in the 3 Dismembers. Without Dismember, he has absolutely no way to deal with Blighted Agent, and we saw how devastating Blighting Agent was there. I think he's going to want Ancient Grudge for the Ink Moth Nexuses out of Ari's board, and Whip Flare can wipe the slate clean for just 2 mana. So I expect to see probably all of Whip Flare, Ancient Grudge, and Dismember coming out of Nassif's sideboard.
Now, you mentioned before that Ari Lax had a specific sideboard plan in place for Edge Champions. Now, we see in Gabriel Nassif's sideboard, he has the 4 Edge Champions. They're not main deck like a lot of robot decks have done in the past.
Yeah.
Is this when Gabriel Nassif brings in Edge Champion? And if he does, is Ari Lax going to his anti-Edge champion plan?
I wouldn't guess so. I mean, Edge Champion principally good against decks like Jun, where your opponent has tons of removal spells. In this deck, you're kind of racing, and I don't think you care as much about resilience as you do just trying to combo out as fast as you can.
3 other lands, but one of them was a Pendlehaven.
Yeah.
So like, it was a little on the loose side, but I figure like I'm on the play, and the elf might actually do something then.
Yeah.
It did get 1, and the 1 mattered, so.
A little bit of banter.
Yeah, we're talking about the opening hand, because Lax's opening hand was not terribly exciting, not terribly fast, but it had lands, it had threats, it had Nexus, which is one of the most important cards in the deck. So,
but you had the Overseer, so I
mean, one of the challenges about building a deck like this is just that there aren't a lot. There isn't a lot of redundancy. Really, there's Glistener Elf. That's the only one casting cost creature with actual infect, and the rest of the creatures need to cost 2 and have evasion, and you're going into 2 other colors.
Right.
So you're really your threat count, your threat density is really, really low. So if you see a hand with 1 threat, isn't that can you really expect anything more than that?
I mean, the way Ari was describing it to me, like, you really just want, like, some combinations of threats and giant growths, and as long as you have that, you can keep the hand.
And in robot fashion, Gabriel Nassif, in the beginning of game 2, starts off with a Darksteel Citadel, Mox Opal, Mem Knight, into Arcbound Ravager.
Now, we see Whip Flare and Dismember, so Nassif kind of saddling into a control role. Now, he has 4 permanents in play on the first turn, but really not a terribly fast hand. I mean, it's not really piling on the damage, doesn't have a cranial plating, anything like that.
Wait. 4 permanents on turn 1, not a fast hand.
Yeah, well, what's he going to... Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy, right? But, I mean, yeah, what's he going to do? Attack for 2? You know?
I think he will.
He's probably going to feed that redundant Mox Opal to the Arcbound Ravager and get in some damage. I mean, it's possible that he doesn't, but...
It doesn't look like
no blocks.
Oh, he is going to do it. I don't think he plans on using that mana for anything. So he just does it during combat, sacrifices Mox Opal to Arcbound Ravager to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Text for 3. Ari Lax goes down to 17, and there is a second Mox Opal, which is legendary.
Fetch.
Yeah.
Now, an interesting play for Lax might be just Nature's Claim the Mox Opal and say, all right, Gabe, you don't have any colored mana to work with. Let's see how you can play this game.
Maybe a greedy play.
Look, man, I'm a greedy individual. All right, I don't think I've ever passed a Wasteland or a Strip Mine in a Q draft. I like depriving my opponent of colored mana.
Oh, so Zach the Griefer heel.
Look, man, your opponent can't beat you if they can't cast spells.
That's right. A man, if a man can't stand, he can't fight.
That's exactly right. Now
sweep the leg.
Says the fighting game aficionado. Now we see a ton of Vines of Vastwood in Lax's hand. We also see a Blighted Agent. Notice he's playing Overgrown Tune tap because he doesn't want to play Blighted Agent without the Vines up to protect it. Dismember from Gabe, you know, he's got to use it the first chance he is. Gabe's in the Hall of Fame. He knows that he doesn't want to wait till Ari's turn to cast the removal spell. well.
Right.
Whip Flare, though, gets around at least the single green part of Vines of Vastwood. So we're going to see an interesting dance of removal spells to threats this game.
Right, so Gabriel Nassif is considering attacking for 3, then he changes his mind, maybe considering adding on a point of poison as well.
Yeah, maybe so. Or whether to, maybe whether to sack some permanents first. Also just trying to play around anything Ari may have, trying to figure out what the implications are for Nature's Claim. But it looks like he's just going to turn his guy sideways.
13.
All right, so attack for 3. Ari Lax goes out to 13. And are we going to see a Steel Overseer post-combat?
That's what I would expect for sure. I still kind of want to just blow up the Mox and untap, play your Blighted Agent with Vines of Vastwood up and just kill your opponent next turn. What's he going to do if he only has colorless mana to combat you with?
I guess it's a race. it would just be a race, the amazing race.
Look, man, I'm Rakdos. I only think of the short term. All right? If he has another Mox, more power to him. Oh, okay, now he's going to blow up the Steel Overseer.
Like, also a fine target.
Yeah, it is.
Not quite Zach Hill fine, but...
I'm just telling you, I know what I'd have done, Rashad, all right? You're just going to get that on the record.
All right, third land, which is a Pendlehaven from Ari Lax, and there is that Blighted Agent, representing 2 points of infect every turn, unblockable.
5.
And we're going to probably see an in-step Dismember and a main phase Whip Flare to get that guy out of there.
But he is able to block.
The Pendlehaven protecting it from Whip Flare normally. Look, I'm putting it on record. If he blows up the Mox, Ari wins this game.
Wow. So
because he gets to hold up Pendlehaven to get around Whip Flare and Dismember.
So what happened there was the Dismember targeted the Blighted Agent, but then Vines of Vastwood gave Blighted Agent hexproof.
Cards.
So Dismember doesn't have a legal target anymore. Goes to the graveyard. We get to keep a Blighted Agent around.
I don't think you're dead, but...
Nassif, I don't think you're dead. That's never what you want to hear from your opponent.
Activate.
But you might be close.
I guess I'm wrong. I guess Nassif is not dead. He is just on 9 poison counters because casting 2 vines requires 4 green mana. All right.
Exactly.
Well, I'll lay off Ari.
3, 4, 5, 6,
I'll
7, 8,
not reward greed. It's only 9.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Gabriel Nassif is doing math in English now.
6.
I wonder what changed between that last game and this one.
He just wanted to show off his bilingual capacity.
Oh, I see.
I bet. Couldn't be any other reason.
I'm going to start counting Spanish more
4
often.
cards.
Yep.
I think... You're at... I don't...
13 and 0 infect.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why.
This is
Okay.
Making sure the life totals are right in a deck that is as math intensive or certainly as counting intensive as either of these decks.
You know what? Not only is it math intensive, you got to keep track of 2 life totals.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's twice as many life totals as anyone else keeping track of.
Whip Flare.
That gets rid of the Blighted Agent. 2 damage to all
Activate
non-artifact
Nexus.
creatures.
All right, so we're activating the Ink Moth Nexus because the Blink Moth Nexus just came to play this turn.
Exactly.
So
Attack was everyone.
So an attack is for currently 4 damage and 1 poison counter.
do you want to start throwing things on top of Arcbound Ravager now while you can? I think you want to kill Ari in 2 attacks, you know what I'm saying?
Well, there was an activation on the Blinkbach Nexus, which there has to be. That's the only reason to activate that, right?
Well, I mean, I guess you're not doing anything else with your mana. But I think he activated the Ink Moth. Or did he activate the Blink Moth?
Maybe he didn't activate the
I think he cast Whip Flare and then, because he has 4 total mana.
But it looks like there is some consideration.
Gonna sag the Memnite.
So that's going to put 4 counters on the Arcbound Ravager, and then we're going to put all the counters on the Ink Moth Nexus.
I think that's what our plan is just giant Ink Moth Nexus, and maybe trying to get it out of dismemberment range so he knows he can guarantee a lethal attack next turn.
So what's going through Gabriel Nassif's mind? What cards can kill Inkmoth Nexus?
I think
don't
so.
have any
I think he's thinking about going all in, but I mean, we've seen a Nature's Claim from Ari, so setting himself up to be really vulnerable to Nature's Claim right now. On the other hand, he's saying, all right, I want to be able to kill you on my next attack step. Now, Ari just slams it down.
Wow.
Go.
So, yeah, Ari Lax goes up to 5 poison. Let's see what happens. Does he have an answer? I see a bunch of green cards. None of those interact with Inkmoth Nexus. They don't. None of them interact with Inkmoth Nexus.
And interestingly, if Ari had Dismember, the Blinkmoth Nexus ability could keep Inkmoth Nexus alive through it.
Wow. And there is that
Cards.
cutesy interaction.
How adorable. Now, this is, again, why Nassif's in the Hall of Fame. You got your opponent to 13. You're attacking for a huge chunk of damage. You've got to be very aware to say, you know what I need to do? I need to start dealing infect damage right now.
Especially, and Ari Lax was at 13.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty low as far as dealing damage goes. But I guess 10 is less than 13.
All right, so another
Activates.
Blinkmoth, Inkmoth getting huger.
Pick up my cards.
And, yep, you got me. 10
the
poison,
one
Ari
supposed
Lax
to be
goes
doing that.
down. We are headed to a game 3.
I'm telling you, this is the Infect mirror match. We just didn't know it when we sat down to watch this game.
I thought that we might
Yeah,
have,
who would have, when I
someone
started
going to
playing
0
Magic,
life instead
this
of,
one at the very
all these
beginning,
green
I thought
numbers all over
poison
the
might be
place.
fair,
But
who would have thought that?
c'est la vie.
You're sitting here.
Trying
That's Spanish, right?
Top 8 approacher with defects.
poison, keep it out of the game.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Gab talking about when he first started
Exactly what
playing
you mean.
Poison Cute, never something he thought would be defining a tournament landscape like it seems to be doing right now in Modern.
I know, and it's a lot different than Poison,
Yeah.
which I can only remember one deck that ever, was anywhere near competitive that used Poison, which was the Poison Sliver deck back from Times Power.
Right. With Virulent Sliver in Limited, took down a Pro Tour with the Sliver Kids and was a constructed deck, too, with a Wild Pair, I believe. There was some crazy stuff there.
Yeah, I played that a couple
played
times. That's right up my alley.
Oh, yeah?
The old Poison Slivers.
I was busy playing Correlash and Mystical Teachings and then PT4. I know, I'm such a buzzkill.
Yeah, you're the one that inspired 3-hour-long quarterfinals in Pro Tours.
Now we see Ari citing out Glistener Elf for Thoughtseize. I think he's a Plague Stinger as well. Glistener Elf, Plague Stinger, not as awesome as they would be frequently, just because Nassif has so many flying creatures that the returns on a 2-mana flyer are not that high. So we see a Vines come out. We see a lot of Plague Stingers on the board. Ari has 2 Thoughtseize. Interestingly, not 3 Thoughtseize. Also isn't bringing in Dismember, really relying upon, or I think he brought in 1 Dismember. But really relying upon those Nature's Claims. That's the thing about sideboarding. You only have 15 cards, so it doesn't always cut as clean as you'd like it to.
You probably want to shuffle with a...
Oh, you can see a bit.
You can play Magic at a store near you every Friday. Earn Planeswalker points and battle against your friends in Friday Night Magic. October's F&M promo card is Evolving Wilds. Visit wizards.com/F&M to find a store near you.
Yeah, I understand.
Now, Zakil, I have a question.
All right.
Now, I saw Ari Lax's deck, and I mentioned before that the threat density is pretty low.
Yeah.
So, and you just said he sideboarded out Plague Stingers.
Yeah.
So now, are you saying he's only down to 8 creatures in his deck that actually deal poison damage?
Pretty tense.
Plus the
games
Inkmoth
like this.
Nexus.
So 12.
So 12, I don't think he sided
Yeah,
out
I
all the
tested
Plague
this
Stinger. It was
matchup,
really
it's
hard
just
for me to
like,
see, but he definitely
someone-
said,
someone
I mean,
dies
you're
on turn
absolutely
3 or
right that his
4,
threat
that's it.
density is super low. I think he's really
Like,
trying
it
to
went
just
to, like, turn
play
5 or
one and
something,
ride it
right?
all the way, courtesy
Yeah,
of Pendulum
I
and
don't know
Noble
what the-
Hierarch.
Maybe your turn
So,
5, my turn 4.
in your
No, you were on the play.
deck
It was your turn.
building
Oh, this game,
experience,
Yeah, you killed me on 5.
let's say you're
Yeah.
building
Game 1, I killed you
creature-based
on...
aggro deck.
Yeah.
What's the number of
Yeah,
creatures
yeah,
you
I
really
killed
want to
you
be
on
at?
That's why we have. That's because we have all those
In
sideboard
a
cards. That's
in a
no
basic
reason.
creature deck,
Yeah.
I usually want like 24 or 26 creatures, right? I mean, you're trying to curve out, trying to play a threat on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. Recently, we've seen between the Blazing Shoal deck from a couple Pro Tours ago to the Invisible Stalker deck from Pro Tour Avacyn Restored, to decks like this now, we're seeing a lot more sort of hybrid combo aggro decks that are way
overboarded
less
by one
reliant
card
on
last
having
matchup, and
lots
then
of creatures in play.
Wow, so do I need to add an extra column to the metagame reports? It used to just be combo, aggro, control, and then we put in aggro control, so now we got aggro combo.
Aggro combo, yeah, maybe so, because I think Robots or Affinity also kind of an aggro combo deck.
I can see that. I mean, it looks closer to an aggro deck to me than, say, the actual old Affinity decks where,
For sure.
you know, they'll kill you and may not ever attack you.
That's for sure, yeah. There's certainly nothing like Disciple of the Vault anymore. On the other end, if you look at the Affinity deck without like, you know, how many games does it win without Arcbound Ravager or without Cranial Plating? You know, those are how it deals damage.
Not
in a
very
huge
many.
chunk. Right, so it's sort of, it's not trying to assemble two specific cards. It's kind of trying to put a combination of one amazing card on any number of its creatures.
Wow.
Kind of a weird way of looking at it, for sure. And like sometimes you win with Steel Overseer or with Signal Pest, but yeah, it's hard to classify this kind of deck.
Right, so we get a look at the feature match area there right before, and it looks like all 4 of our matches are still going on. We're having some intense magic this round instead of like last round where it was intense. I guess I shouldn't call it not intense,
Look at your
but
hand and be like, you're on the play,
less
land,
brisk.
Signal Pest, 4-drop, 4-drop,
Yeah,
3-drop,
I mean,
3-drop.
there's just so
and
much
a Glitch
writing
Lock
on
idle.
every one of these decisions.
Snap keep.
Okay,
Like,
remember
like
Stanislav
No, 'cause
Sivka?
I think
If
I've
you're-
heard of him. I
remember
think
that
he's doing
guy?
pretty well today.
Yeah, he's still on he's got a 21 game win streak in this tournament.
I think I like kept
My
that exact
goodness.
hand. on
That's
the play
right. He
against,
wins 2-0 over Bruce Pie.
Was it-
And I really like Pie.
Titan Ramp or
Like-
whatever it was. the Castle Wolf
I
on
mean,
the
I
side.
love Pie, but you know, it's not. I
Just,
guess it's
died
not
to
as
2-0,
good as Second
played Rogue on
Breakfast.
turn, like a million. Like you played some cards
It's-
that didn't matter.
I don't know how to. I guess unless you have Pie for Second Breakfast.
This is really a Rich Hagen quality setup for your language going on right here.
I don't know if I should apologize or thank you or just walk
on
out the
the play,
door.
yeah.
I already called Reed Duke the Duke of Hazard today, so my Rich Hagen pun limit is like right. It's boiling right now.
That's kind of beginners punning as well. Like,
That's true.
We'll
That's
get you
not
up to
too
speed.
sophisticated. I appreciate that. Rashawn.
Don't worry about it. I do what I can. So it looks like Ari Lax
join
is
me?
taking a mulligan going down to 6, and we look at Gabriel Nassif's hand, and there's a no land and double Mox Opal. That doesn't look keepable.
Yeah, not too exciting. You see Nassif ship it back. We see that both players actually sideboarded in Thoughtseize, even though it's in neither
Not
main
enough mana,
deck.
but
So
good cards.
kind of interesting
Yeah,
how they're
two
trying to
Mox,
position
no land.
against each other.
Well, isn't
Mine
there
was the-
usually a balance between how much life you want to lose with Thought
All the cards I
Seize
needed
versus
and no infect
how much life
so
you're
I'm just
gaining
like,
by the
yeah,
cards you're
why not?
making them
Not
discard?
happening.
And I haven't seen anyone lose from life yet.
Yeah, that's true.
I wonder who mulligans. Probably your deck mulligans a bit better than mine.
Yeah, I've got a lot
I
more
heard something
redundancy.
cool happened down
My
at
deck's
the
like 20 of one
Watanabe
card,
match,
20 of
but
another
I
card,
wasn't
20
sure
of another
exactly.
card.
Maybe we get to
Just like
get a
cast
double.
some of each.
Just say that
Your
again
deck's
for me.
Like,
I think we saw two
Like,
terminates hit
like
two Tarmogoyfs.
20 of
Oh,
one
the
stack,
double
20 of another
terminate
stack,
on the
and then,
double
like,
Tarmogoyf play.
12 another stack and like 12 of
Yeah.
Get him out.
It's like you're looking for 4 different kinds of cards. I'm looking for 3 or something.
So I think Thoughtseize, one of the reasons both players brought them in is, you know, again, we talked about the specific cards. If Nassif can Thoughtseize one of Ari's threats, or if Ari can Thoughtseize like a Cranial Plating or an Arcbound Ravager, the decks are kind of crippled at that point. It's hard for them to get really very much going if that happens.
Yeah, and it seems if Ari is lowering his threat count,
Yeah,
a Thought
that's true.
Seize, you know, I guess there's a good chance that Ari Lax looks at his hand, sees one threat, maybe a pump spell or two, and is inclined to keep that hand.
Right.
And then a Thought Seize just rips it apart, doesn't it?
Especially given both these players are mulliganing. I really have to think the Robots deck is a little bit better on the mulligan than the Infect deck, both because it has a little bit more redundancy and because it has 4 Thoughtseize that can draw it right out of that. So I have to think a mulligan for both players probably favors Nassif.
Right, and we hear from one of the back
I'm gonna
matches
write
that
20-20 again.
Matt Costa beats Yu
20-0.
Watanabe, I believe, 2-1.
Because I killed
Okay.
myself with
2-0.
zeros and vault scourges, and you could never know.
I want to game with
And
damage.
in another back match, Maxim Grin beats Even Flock 2-0. 2-1.
Don't worry about it.
See, I heard them both, and I just
Yeah, you just switched them up.
Well, I kind
game
of
with damage.
just gave, you know,
Don't
player of the
take
year,
any
Watanabe,
matchup.
the extra win.
I don't think
I
you've
feel
seen
like
the cards
he should
ever
never
necessarily.
be allowed to lose like 2-0.
I don't think
He
it
should
is.
always get the player of the year
say that.
You'd tell me
point.
after.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
The
just part.
I'm awesome
Yeah,
point.
it's just part of being player of the year. You always win. You always lose 2-1 if you lose.
All right, now Ari does keep his 6-card hand. Nassif
All right,
looking
that's
at what looks to be a pretty good hand.
You got
Yeah,
19
it's double Mox Opal, but there's a land in there,
Misty
and there's an
Rainforest.
Arcbound Ravager.
or a
And
basic
you have to
forest. You can
think,
play Noble
is that
Hierarchy.
how much better is that going to be than the 5-card hand? So you just have to keep
Right.
that one.
Yeah, for sure. Now we see a turn 1 Noble Hierarch. Ari's saying Noble Hierarch, one of the key innovations of this particular iteration of this deck. You know, doesn't have Infect, but does help cast Blighted Agent and helps those 1/1s really get through blockers a lot better than they would be able to otherwise.
So let's see what Gabriel Nassif's turn 1 is going to look like this time.
All right, so they went to play a Darksteel Citadel, then picked it right back up. We see a Springleaf Drum and a Mox, but no creature to turn that drum on immediately. So
Well, yeah, but Mox Opal and Springleaf Drum at least turns the Mox on.
that is true. So he still can get 1 mana on the first turn from that Mox, but can't quite get the 2 he needs to cast the Ravager in his hand. But still, not a bad 6-card start from Nassif.
Yep.
So down comes the Springleaf Drum, and that might be it.
Okay.
Oh, he plays the Mox Opal,
Go.
and that's it.
And sometimes you want to hold Mox Opal in case your opponent plans on blowing it up. But in this case, given he has a redundant copy, he actually would kind of like for it to bite a Nature's Claim at this point. So he's kind of laying it down there just to offer it as kind of a juicy target.
And we see Ari Lax with his hand on his head, looking at his grip of cards, and there is a Glistener Elf.
Now, interestingly, he does not attack for 1 point of regular damage with Noble Hierarch, so he's representing some kind of pump effect to protect his guys, or the Nature's Claim to blow up something at the end of Nassif's turn.
You would have to think that Nature's Claim is going to find a very good target, especially since Gabriel Nassif just drew a Cranial Plating.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, not only can it blow up one of the most important
Cards.
cards in Cranial Plating,
Right.
your opponent might just play right into your Nature's Claim, and you can really kind of blow them out and disrupt their entire game plan with if you time that card just right.
So Gabriel Nassif was flipping through those 2 Arcbound Ravagers he has in his hand. Has a second Mox Opal, which isn't doing anything, and the aforementioned Cranial Plating. 2 mana, considering one of these awesome
Ravager.
2 mana spells, and it is Arcbound Ravager.
Right, so he still has access to 2 mana if he wants it. You have to expect him to be playing the second Ravager right now, which also can threaten, you know, just a block on the Glistener Elf to save some time, putting 2 counters, I believe, on Ravager if it's sacrificed to
He
the
has free
second
hand
one.
as well?
Is that how
Yes,
that works?
yeah, that's exactly how it works, because you get the first counter from the sacrifice ability, and there is a modular trigger from from Arcbound Ravager, which says, hey, all the counters are already on me, let's put somewhere else.
That's a lot of dice to roll around.
That is, well, we'll just use 1 die. we'll just consolidate.
Yeah,
We
right.
actually, that's actually what we want to happen, so that we can conserve dice. We're on a dice conservement plan here in Seattle.
A dice conservement plan?
Yes,
It's a government environmental initiative?
it is.
Uh-huh. Interesting to see the Infect counter +1/+1 counter interaction happen as frequently as it has in this match.
Yeah, I actually didn't
Sorry.
think about it until I saw it happen. You know, actually the second time I saw it happen, I was like, wait a minute, that's a kind of a little theme we got going on in this
Right.
match.
Now Nassif again planning out whether he wants to cast the second Ravager or the Cranial Plating. A very difficult decision to make right now. Again, you've got to plot out the
Ravager.
entire game to make sure you get the mana right. So not easy to make decisions like this.
Now,
Go.
I think this might be, no Nature's Claim on the Arcbound Ravager.
Oh, wow. So Vines of Vastwood plus Groundswell, that is lethal with the Noble Hierarch. That's 2 + 4 + 4. Ari
I go to
beats
17.
his chest. So if Nassif doesn't block here, the game is over. Or,
Oh, and we have a Nexus to carry all this weight.
+4.
That's 5/5 on that.
Exalted
Nexus.
triggers,
That makes it a
6 infect.
6. So we're gonna play a conservative here. We're just gonna do 6 infect. That's gonna give the Gabriel
Yeah.
Nassif 6 poison
You're up.
counters.
All right, so he decides not to go for lethal with the Inkmoth Nexus. Instead, just using a single Groundswell, 1 mana short to kill him outright with Vines of Vastwood. Instead, though, with
2
6 points in Nassif's hand, Nassif basically can't afford to let a single creature through for the rest of this game.
Right. Now, Ari Lax didn't have lethal in his hand at the end of Gabriel Nassif's turn. So would you have maybe considered using Nature's Claim on the blocker in hopes of drawing a spell that would be lethal, or is that just way too risky?
I don't think that's
2 cards, you
unreasonable,
said.
Rashad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a short-term play, but you are drawing to a lot of outs. You have 4 Vines, 4 Groundswell, and 4 Might of Old Crosas. So I certainly can defend that play. On the other hand, you know, you're still getting through for. I don't know that I would have used the Groundswell there, but it was Ari's last land in his hand, so he wanted to take advantage of the landfall trigger. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out what Ari wants to do with his Nature's Claim.
Stay alive?
Yeah, that's one option. He also can clear out the Inkmoth Nexus on the other side of the table. He can activate his own Inkmoth, attack for 2, and then attack for 2 again.
Exactly.
Courtesy of the Exalted trigger. So it's possible he just wants to save it and punch through the last few points of damage.
A lot of careful consideration over on Gabriel Nassif's side. Not the card. Just the actual...
Just the act of being.
Yeah, just the act of being. He is carefully considering.
Now, the Glistener Elf back to block
Excellent.
means that Ari's not going to have to take too much damage from Cranial Plating, even if he didn't have Nature's Claim up.
I can't play any faster. It's like so I mean, how much time's left on the clock?
We have 15 minutes total.
So it looks like Gabriel Nassif might be getting another
you can't just
warning for self-play.
Can you get called a head judge?
So looks like we're seeing an intervention right here.
No.
A divine
No, I don't
intervention
want
or
to-
just
I don't want
a
to get
limbs intervention? A limbs intervention?
Those two things are similar.
They are, mostly because of the maroon-colored shirt. So we're going to get head judge Jason LeMahieu. You didn't think I could say his last
That
name,
was
did
pretty
you?
good, Rashad. That was very good.
LeMahieu. I guess I didn't do it well enough for Sheldon Menery. Or is it Menery? It's Menery.
Oh, okay. Now, Nassif knows something's up because Ari played the land on tap, so that's one of the reasons it's taking him so long to make this decision. I mean, on the other hand, though, again, like, the rules are not taking into account how complicated your deck is to play or how high stakes of a decision you have to make. Again, that's way too subjective for the rule system to accommodate, and why should you have more time just because you're playing a deck you perceive to be more complicated than your opponent, you know? So it's a really tricky thing to draw the line on.
Okay,
You know what I'm saying?
let me provide a hypothetical situation for you.
Right.
We're in game 3,
Gonna
50-minute
30
rounds,
mana.
and it
What
only
color?
took us 3 minutes to play the first 2 games.
Right, exactly.
How long
Yep.
should I be able to take more time in considering what I do in doing this game 3 where we have 45 minutes to play?
Right, yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. And
Oh, I thought you would. I was hoping you would know the answer because I don't know the answer
definitive
either.
answer. No, it's just all these issues are incredibly difficult to arbitrate, you know, and
And obviously the answer is that isn't really the consideration.
Right.
It's basically the flow of the game is determined by the flow of the game and not by
Yeah,
the
of
time
course.
on the clock.
Well, no, of course. I mean, these tournaments have to finish. The rounds have to finish. You know, we don't want to be here until midnight every night either. You know, least of all the players, right, who have to get up next morning and start playing again. So, you know, you got to consider if everyone is pushing the limits of the clock, that means more matches go to time, and that means that more matches don't start.
Right.
You know.
So at least we still have some gameplay going on. We have a Steel Overseer for Gabriel Nassif, and I don't disbelieve that Mr. LeMahieu is not coming. I think he's still coming.
Okay.
I
We're just
think-
trying to
yeah.
get some gameplay
Exactly.
in the interim. So we see the one Arcbound Ravager with 2 counters, a freshly cast
You have
Steel
1 in hand,
Overseer.
correct?
Yeah.
Nassif clearly trying to figure out what he wants to do, if anything, with Cranial Plating. Really complicated attacks right now. Weird board situation with 2 modular Arcbound Ravagers.
I'm
A
gonna
huge
attack
pile of
with-
counters can go on any creature that attacks right now.
Now, that makes it pretty resilient to, say, Nature's Claim,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, it does.
Whereas a cranial plating, it's kind of definitely has a target
two.
on its head,
Right.
or at least the
One.
head, or even the head of the person wearing a cranial plate.
Now, really quick block from Ari. I mean, it's as though he'd planned this out in advance.
He had a little bit of time to think about what he was going to do.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if Nassif sacrifices the Arcbound Ravager before blocks to pump the other Arcbound Ravager, that means the Glistener Elf stays alive.
Exactly. It also makes a great target for Nature's Claim.
That is also a very good point.
Let's
Sack the drum.
So we're sacking the drum to.
And
Looks like we're just
that's
going
it.
to keep our Arcbound Ravager
Yeah.
alive.
Take 2.
All right.
15.
So
Go.
So it is a warning for slow play.
Now that we're between turns, the floor judge will give you a slow play warning.
Yeah, but they don't know what's going on.
Okay, we're just gonna chat. Okay, so he gave a slow play warning.
Yeah.
Can I go to the restroom right now?
No, this won't take that long.
Okay.
So he gave you a slow play warning. It's in the IPG, gives me the ability to upgrade that. That ability is on the grounds that I believe it significantly affects the outcome of the match.
Yeah.
I don't believe that it's going to affect the outcome of the match, but I am going to uphold the slow play warning, which adds an additional 2 turns to the
Yes.
extra rounds.
Okay.
So you have received a second warning for slow play. It is not going to be upgraded because I don't believe it will significantly affect the outcome of the match. However, I need you to pick up the pace of play. This is your absolute last warning, Gabriel. You'll get the extra time that we've taken for this ruling and the warning, and you'll get an extra 2 turns after the additional 5. But this is the absolute last time that we're having this talk.
Okay. Sure.
So you'll get a few extra minutes plus additional 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we're seeing a warning. It is not being upgraded to a loss. And you have to feel like Gabriel dodged a bullet right there.
Well, I mean, well within the guidelines.
Oh, for sure.
Animate.
Yeah.
So
Attack. Trigger.
Yeah.
Gabriel not getting a game loss
Alright.
is well within the guidelines.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, we see the Inkmoth Nexus being activated to block. We have to think that explicitly what Ari was setting up was a Nature's Claim
One
on
card in
that
hand?
Nexus.
It has to be. But there is some consideration. What could that consideration be?
He also has Apostle's Blessing, which he could just say, all right, I'll just use Apostle's Blessing and trade that way and keep my claim up in case something bad happens.
Now, Apostle's Blessing, you pick a color.
I think you can choose artifacts.
You
with
can also
Apostle's
choose
Blessing, too,
artifacts
yeah.
with a possible
Yeah,
blessing.
protection from artifacts or from the color of your choice.
Oh, wow.
That's a versatile card.
You go to 13.
And that's what he does.
And Apostle's Blessing my Inkmoth Nexus.
What does it do?
What does it
So
do?
you're at 13?
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to pay 2 Phyrexian mana, which means Ari Lax is
Okay.
under 13.
What do you choose?
Artifacts.
So the Blinkmoth Nexus has protection from artifacts right now.
All right. I'm gonna sack it to. Snap.
This seems to be after a block was declared,
I'm gonna sack it to.
Okay.
because there's some sacrificing going on.
You're up.
And is it possible? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that is after a block was declared.
Yeah.
So Ari keeping the claim up, saying, all right, I think I can live more than 2 turns, so it's worth it to me to let the block happen to get rid of the Nexus.
Now, Gabriel Nassif just drew Thoughtcast. He's going to play it.
Cast.
That's going to give him 2 more
Draw 'em up.
cards.
Huge thought cast right there.
Whoa, is that a welding jar?
That is a welding jar.
Wow.
From
Now-
2003 era Affinity. Long time ago.
Now, it does effectively counter the Nature's Claim.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
that creature will become tapped because of that. That's part of the regeneration ability.
That's exactly right. Now, Ari does have a pump spell, so I think one of the reasons he wanted to preserve the claim is just to hold it up for a blocker. And you're exactly right, Rashad. Even if Welding Jar is on the battlefield, that blocker is still tapped.
Exactly.
So, from Ari's perspective, tapped, dead, 5%ing lethal, it's all the same to me.
Yeah. Now, Ari Lax has the what's the name? +4/+4. Vines of the
Vines of
Vast
Vast.
World. Yes, Vines of the Vast World. That's what's going to make that Inkmoth Nexus
2 cards in hand,
lethal.
correct?
Yeah.
And since there is no flying creatures over on Gabriel Nassif's side, it's not looking good.
Yeah, I think Ari's got this one in case there's something I totally don't understand, or in case he feels the need to chump block with the Noble Hierarch out of absolutely nowhere, which I've got to expect is not likely to happen.
Well, we need to add up this damage.
That's
Ari
true.
Lax is at 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is
Alright.
coming at him right now. And there's 3 more artifacts. 7 and 3 is 10, so he was 1 short. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So he could have gotten him down to 2, but 2
I'm going
wasn't enough.
to Nature's Claim your Springleaf Drum.
All right, so
guess
getting
that's
rid of
bad
the
for me.
Springleaf Drum in order to play
Go.
around Dismember on his main
my last
phase.
card.
Wow.
Ari knows what he's got.
Vines, that
Very,
makes sense.
very good play. And there's the vines.
So Ari's showing it to him, but he hasn't actually
Go.
drawn his card. So
It was like, no, take your turn. Gabriel Nassif is going to make him do it.
Animate
Yeah.
with kicker,
Okay.
attack, exalted trigger, you go to 12 points.
All right. Good game.
And that's
Make
it.
him do it.
Sometimes you just have to make him do it.
yeah,
I was
hey.
like,
And
you don't have a pump
congratulations to Ari
spell, right?
Lax.
That'd be bad.
He wins
Yeah.
round 14
But I guess
2-1
the-
over
I mean,
Gabriel
there's
Nassif.
nothing I
Yeah.
can do
All
besides
right.
bluff, but we're
Yeah.
gonna go for it
I
anyways.
was,
I think that's it for
The turn
for
before, I
gameplay.
was on like
Here we come. Back to the smile. Don't forget
I'm
the
ready.
smile.
I'm
Are
ready
you ready?
this time.
Are you ready? I'm not ready. All right, let me get ready. All right. There we go. All right, let's do it.
My Nexus.
yeah, that was the play I was concerned about. I get to claim your Nexus then?
Yeah. But then, you claim my Nexus, and yeah, I think I still lose, right? Because
Probably.
claim my Nexus. Yeah.
All right, here we are. Back in the booth. Rashad Miller, Zach Hill. That was a crazy match.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I mean, Affinity can flood the board with creatures. Not usually so good for the Infect deck, but Noble Hierarch plus just an unblockable ability, plus a lot of removal spells allowed already to take it. Really well-played game. I was very impressed. I would have predicted Gab to win that one.
Oh, man, it was great. Great round 14, but we're going to send it back to the news desk because they have a lot more interesting things to talk about than we do. So let's see what they have to say.